What's up? What's up? Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. I am Dave Smith. He is Robbie the Fire Bernstein. How are you doing today, good sir?
You know, I slept on my neck weird last night, and I don't like being old. If we have to start pitching wars to get the baby blood, I'm in. Just as someone in the deep state can reach out and let me know.
That's all. It's really all it takes to change your mind. Yeah, it is a thing, dude. Getting old. I do think, like, for me, it was there was something. It's probably around your age. It's like mid-30s is like when you start just like slowly start noticing like like something hurts and you're like, oh yeah, well it'll get better. It'll go away.
It just doesn't. I'm doing the Frankenstein walk today of. And
there's like things like that. Like if you fuck up your neck or fuck up your back or something like that. Whereas like in your 20s, it'd be like, that was stupid that I did that. But then like when you get in closer to 40, it's more like, dude, I just fucked up like the next few weeks. Like this is gonna suck now for a while. Yeah, it's fun. But you're smarter and stuff, so that's cool.
I guess that's the I'm smart enough to learn no more porn on the pillow with this, and then you gotta go to your desktop like an adult. I guess I've reached an age. You just learn that you gotta make these adjustments. We run a classier show, and you guys want to hear the news.
It is true. It's so much more dignified to hurt yourself during sex, if it makes sense, that like the real thing. Okay. By the way, let's start off just some quick plugs before we get into the meat of today's episode. We're going to be in Boston coming up very soon. Looking forward to that. Come on out, Boston. We always fill up the shows in Boston. So if you want to come, get them now because these shows will sell out. ComicDaveSmith.com, and we're traveling all over the place for the rest of the year. So come see us there. And then Rob, you got some gigs coming up, I believe.
I've got a Steamboat, and now I'm confused because I got it wrong the last time. Idaho and Iowa, it's all kind of the same state to me. I think it's in Idaho. I don't know. Just go to my website, robbernsteincomedy.com. I got 2 dates coming up, and one of them's in a state that starts with an I, and I'm really looking forward to being there.
There you go. Also, I should reminder. I know I told you guys I'm debating Alex Norway. I will learn his name by the time we debate. Debating immigration at the Soho Forum. thesohoforum.org is the website to go if you want to come see it live if you're in the New York City area. Also, little teaser for you. Got some big ones coming up.
Ooh.
Not going to tell you what they are, but I got a few big shows coming up that I'm very excited to do.
It's interesting. A couple years ago when you said that, it was very obvious, and now there's a couple different options on the table.
Yes, it's one of them's the obvious one. That's all I'll say. And then and then one of them I'm doing tomorrow, doing a big show that I've never done before. So very excited to go do that. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but we're recording it tomorrow, so probably soon. Okay, so there's a few things going on. One of the things that I wanted to talk about on the show that we may have briefly mentioned it, but I don't think we've really given it too much attention. But I do find this to be very interesting because it's such a comment on kind of the moment that we're living in, and obviously there's all these kind of major themes of 2025 so far, and one of the major ones being the disastrous state of the Democratic Party. And obviously this has to do with many factors, but really losing the propaganda apparatus of the corporate media is probably the biggest one. It's not just that they lost an election, it's that they lost the mechanism by which they win elections. And so anyway, so the topic that I'm thinking about is, which I'm curious if you've watched any of it, but have you seen Gavin Newsom has started a podcast?
I've seen clips.
Yeah, same with me. I've just seen clips. I'm not going to sit down and watch an episode of Gavin Newsom. But it's just as somebody who was, I'm not like first generation of podcasters. Maybe I'd be like second generation. There were people who were at it before me, but for somebody who was, I'm trying to think like around when I first, because I was doing Part of the Problem in my apartment in Brooklyn in 2012. I know that. So it's before even we went to Stand Up New York Labs and before, but I had done Skanks and I had done Hammer Fisting originally. So that would have to have been around 2009, 2010. That first started speaking, having conversations that we were recording and then putting on the internet. And so it's just, at this point now, back then, it was not, like a few comedians had podcasts, but it certainly wasn't like a thing that everybody had. And it was kind of a weird thing. It was a thing you'd almost have to explain to somebody. But to see now, just as someone who's just been in this for a while, that the move for the darling of the Democratic Party, the guy who kind of all of the Democratic, bigwigs wanted to run for president, but couldn't either convince him to or couldn't maneuver around Kamala Harris, to see that as he's clearly, I mean, I don't think this is too much of a leap to say, clearly building toward a 28 potential run. Just imagine, Rob, how crazy it is that like the move is, well, you're going to have to go start a podcast. And it is the correct move. I'm not even like criticizing him for that. Like that is the thing to go do now. And that in itself is just so wild to me. And I just I love that. I think it's great, as awful as he is. How crazy is it that that's now what the ruling class has to do in order to get somewhere is, and obviously it's a different version, but it's like they have to do what me and Lewis did in 2010. Like that's what they're, but yes, that is the move. So anyway, that's just kind of interesting in my mind. But before we get into, because I wanted to play a couple clips from, he had, what's his name? Tim Walz on his show, the vice presidential candidate in the last election. I think it's kind of interesting to me. But I'm just curious to you, of the clips you've seen, what do you think of this move? Gavin Newsom getting out there on a podcast. What do you think about him being the Democratic, potential nominee or any of that stuff?
All right, I got a lot on this. So,
all right, let's have it.
There was a time in this world where you had to put on a suit to look like you were in the professional class and go and get a job. And this speaks to the degradation of the news networks, where it used to be, in order to be treated seriously, you needed to have an academic standing, or you needed to look like you're in this beautiful studio, and that's why people took you seriously. And those guys so eroded their credibility that suddenly doing the makeshift thing that we all did because we couldn't afford to be in the big news studios and we weren't given those opportunities, but then we brought something different to the market, which was truth. And now this is almost the suit and tie of truth of,
dude, it's such a good point, Rob. Yes.
He's not in the big studio. He's doing the makeshift thing, which almost signals to people, oh, this might be truthful. So that's one element. Then the next element.
I'm sorry, just keep that thought in mind, because that's such a good point. And it's like in the 90s when billionaires started wearing t-shirts and jeans. Like it all of a sudden became a thing where Steve Jobs would give his presentations just in a t-shirt and jeans. It's almost like, you have to assume the aesthetic of the regular guy in order to talk to the regular guy. And there's just something that's a really interesting observation. There really is something to that they now have to almost abandon the cable newsy looking background, because our monkey brains have just associated that with liar so much that you just come off as a liar if you're in that environment at all. Sorry, continue.
And then there's two more qualities to it. The next is, I think, in part, Donald Trump became president because he's incredible at television, and television is a talent. I think that goes all the way back to, I think it was when JFK beat Nixon because he looked good and Nixon wouldn't wear makeup. And so there is a quality to the way that we consume information now. Now, ideally, you would just be a great governor and you would go sell, look at how well I've done in my state, and that would be the way and go to sell yourself. But that's not he's a terrible governor. That's not the skill set that he has. And so as we come into the next election cycle, and you basically have to be great at radio now, because that's going to be the new place that you go to try and sell yourself. It's almost smart to get good at radio, because, and I think that might be why Michelle Obama's trying to launch a podcast too, which she's terrible, and it's unbelievable how bad it is. And maybe we could delve into that one in another episode, because it's shocking. And
we could even talk about it a little bit today, because it is interesting how much, podcasting is, I know I used, when we were going back and forth with Jonah Goldberg, I used the metaphor of like fighting and how the old school people found out they couldn't fight in the UFC. But there is something about it that is kind of similar in a way. Maybe it's just that I'm a fan of both the two things, so I see the parallels. But like there's something where it's like revealing of what you really got. Yeah, you could talk a tough game or something like that, but let me see you in a fight. Let me see you when you're hurt and you're tired, and then you really test character. And there is something about podcasting that like actually tests, like it separates the wheat from the chaff. Like you're like, what do you really have? What do you really have to say? Let me get into your mind and see if you actually have something here. And for all the talk over these years of how somehow it was always so ridiculous, but that Michelle Obama was like the dream scenario, that she would come and run for president or something. Hey, you just watch her. And again, I've only seen some of the clips, but it is like she is boring. She is totally she's nasty. She's got like a real kind of like bitter thing to her, and she's vapid. Like there's just like, I don't know. It was very interesting. And the other thing that's so interesting about that is the numbers have just been abysmal. Like you see her, she's getting like, I don't know. She had like a video that had like 40,000 downloads or views on YouTube or whatever or something. And you're like, what, this fucking Michelle Obama? Really? She can't put together a couple 100,000 views on an episode. Anyway, sorry, continue, but it is very interesting.
And just on that topic, it's odd how much her brother looks like a lady shaved her wig. It's just so backwards that apparently that's a man and she's a lady. But I guess just bad genetics. Going back to Gavin Newsom, I think in this media climate, it's good to practice podcasting if you want to be in politics. I think it's probably a necessary tool. I don't agree with a single one of Gavin Newsom's policies. I think he's an evil and bad person. With that said, he is a fantastic salesperson and a fantastic liar. And there's kind of a rule in sales: don't fear the phone. And there's like a human nature. If things aren't going well, you don't want to talk to your customers. But there's a signal, and people, the people with devil skills are the best at this. When things aren't going well, you'll see more of them, because it kind of showcases the confidence that they're still willing to take your calls or still be in front of the cameras and saying everything's going great. So Gavin Newsom's actually very smart and very skilled, that he's willing, and unlike anyone else in the Democratic Party, and we're going to see in this clip, he's willing to talk to people with very different points of views, and he's willing to engage with those topics. And it's actually it's a very smart sales and persuasion technique, that he's willing to actually engage and get in front of this stuff and not go and hide after you have these forest fires incidents.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's exactly right. And there is, you can't deny he's incredibly talented. And he's a talented politician. Now, I completely agree with you, and I think that kind of almost goes without saying. Yes, obviously, his policies have been a disaster. I mean, he's been a truly, he's been a uniquely terrible governor. Like what he's done with the state of California is as bad a job as I could think of any governor doing with any state. But like, there is something, he's an interesting figure, because he is in a way, he is like a traditional politician, and a very good one, like a very good traditional politician. I think the way I look at it is kind of like, in my lifetime, I think pretty undeniably the most talented politicians have been Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. For people, Bill Clinton lost a step. I think he did too many drugs when he was young, and it kind of fucked him up later in life. Like he doesn't have it anymore. But for people who like are around my age, like if you remember the 90s, I mean, he was just like the guy. I mean, he just charmed the pants off of everybody. Then rip some pants off of some people against their will, but that's another story for another day. But he was just incredibly smooth, and he had this like very like unique ability. I mean, I wasn't alive for like Jack Kennedy, And people would say similar things about him, and maybe for his time, like 1960 is just such a different culture and a different time that maybe it was, but it wasn't like what Bill Clinton could go on, like at the time, right? It's almost like if you think about the version of going on a podcast. Well, at the time, what Bill Clinton would do is like go on MTV and just get the kids like into what he was doing. He was really like just incredible, and very, very good. Not just good at like giving a speech, but really good at interacting, really good at like winning people over and being charming. And then Barack Obama was never quite as good at the interacting as Bill Clinton was, but his speech giving like blew him out of the water. I mean, he was just he was truly like in his prime. Barack Obama was a master orator, like it just on another level, incredible. And wrote a lot of his own speeches too. I mean, I know he had speechwriters, as they all do, but he wrote a lot of his own speeches, and they were like excellent speeches.
Gavin Newsom can literally be standing in front of a state on fire and going, "We're doing the best possible job of anybody who's ever stood here." He's got that Trump quality, but it's a different style of lying.
Trump, in a way, the way I look at it is like, I think Bill Clinton and Barack Obama were the best politicians of my life. Trump is like an anti-politician almost, which is, I'm not saying there aren't similarities between the two, but it's like, he's a whole different thing. He decided like, I'm not going to do that thing, that I'm not going to do the politician thing. I'm just Donald Trump. Now, Gavin Newsom is like, he's a very talented traditional politician. I don't exactly know in this current market, in the current culture of the United States of America, is there a market for a traditional politician? I'm not so sure of that. It's like much like you said with the idea that the cable news look has just been so degraded that people don't want to see that anymore. I think that might be true for the traditional politician too. However, when you see Gavin Newsom, and especially when you contrast it with who else the Democrats have, it's hard. You kind of got to take that guy seriously. You're like, okay, no, listen, this guy is both in terms of IQ, in terms of just rhetorical abilities, he's levels above the rest of these guys. There's like really no one else the Democrats have who's like at that level, and that's been clear the more we've seen of all these Democrats. And I will say that, as I said at the beginning, and as you put quite well, there's no question this is the right move. Like from a political point of view, it's like, yeah, dude, you got to get on podcasts. You got to argue with people on the other side. You got to be talking about the current thing. You got to be trying to sell some type of compelling message. So there's no question that that's there. The glaring issue you have is, like, as you said, Rob, just the disaster that is California, and the wildfires are almost the least of it at this point. It's a big thing, but it's the disaster that is the state of California, where people have on his watch, people have been fleeing the state by the hundreds of thousands. And there's really, when it comes to a situation with a country, like ours, where you have these united states and there is freedom of movement between all of them, there's just no better indicator of your success or failure. Like people voting with their feet is the most powerful endorsement, or vice versa, of a state. If you're doing a great job, people flood in. If you're doing a terrible job, people flood out, and people are flooding out of California. And for obvious reasons. I mean, like if, all you have to do is go to a major city in California, and you'd be like, oh, that's why people are leaving, because of that. Anyway, the other issue that they have is that it does seem to me that there's a lack of substance issue with Gavin Newsom. And it at least it seems to me from all the clips I've seen, the major problem that he has is that like it's like he's a very nicely wrapped present, but there is nothing inside.
And a bad
Like, it's
track
just-
record.
Yeah, it's a bad track record, and then he's really got no. There doesn't seem to be any real argument that he's there to make, and so that's an issue too. But anyway, this is all fascinating to me, and of course the conversation that is dominant in the Democratic Party right now, which is the kind of like, what do we do from here talk. I also just find it very interesting how they're at such a. They have such an inability to grapple with what actually just happened and why it just happened. And it's interesting to see them spin their wheels. So anyway, let's go to this clip from the Gavin Newsom podcast. I believe it's called Meet Gavin Newsom. Am I right about that? Anyway, right. let's go check out that clip.
Have they figured it out that the identity piece of this is more important than the actual substance behind it?
Well, they've been doing it for decades. I mean, we've saw the welfare queens. They've seen the Southern strategy. We've seen it over and over. It's an old playbook, and we're as dumb as we want to be that we allow them to do this with CRT and ESG and DEI and every three-letter word.
And then they demonize people.
Yeah, demonize, and they weaponize grievance. They other people. They talk down to people, past people. They humiliate people. They weaponize difficult issues. But the bottom line is, and I think it goes back to what we began with, is, and I applaud you for this, is we cannot continue to be on the defense reacting to this. We've got to go on the offense. We got to meet people where they are. But I also think this, and this is where, so
just pause it already. Pause it already here. Isn't it like, is it, you get what I'm saying when I say it's like a beautifully wrapped present, but there's no gift inside? It's just already like, what is this? This is empty sloganeering. Like, there's no actual comment being made here. We can't play defense. We got to play offense, and we got to meet people where they're at. What does any of that mean? Like, I'm sorry, maybe I'm the dumb one here. Speak slower so I can understand. What does any of that mean? What are you saying? Oh, it's identity that matters, and they weaponize it, and they humiliate people, and they like. Again, this is like, it sounds like a James Lindsay defining the woke right, and then you give a definition that applies to everybody. You know, well, they're awakening to an injustice and they want to put themselves in a position of power. Like, yeah, that's politics. What do we? Isn't it wild? I mean, by the way, you know, you have two of. This conversation is happening between two of the most aggressive lockdown governors, and the two of the governors who were the biggest champions of Black Lives Matter. And you're talking about how they use identity and they demonize others and attempt to humiliate them. They use important issues to demonize others. Okay, yeah, like. I have some mild memories of being unvaccinated in 2021 and 22, and I felt like the finger was pointed at us a little bit. But anyway, it's just this is the point I'm making. It's like one of the things. It's like the podcast world didn't just blow up because it was on the internet instead of being on the TV. I mean, that is part of it. About, you know, like people are on their phones and their computers more, and they're on televisions less. But it was also that there was just substantive conversations being had. And, you know, people can, you can mock the bro podcast vibe or whatever. And there's like, part of that's fair. You know, it is, there's no question. It's kind of like, there's a bro energy to a lot of the popular podcasts, but there's also just like organic, substantive conversations that are happening. And this is just, it's too weird and nothing. Like, you got to say something. I don't know. Any thoughts on this, Rob, or do you want to jump back in? I
agree with you that in the first half of this, he absolutely says nothing of substance, but the second half I thought was interesting. Yes.
All right, let's keep playing.
Conversation I'm trying to have is you got to respect people you disagree with, even, and you can't just dismiss people. This
How
notion
do you fight it?
And well, this
I
notion
think
of
I could kick most of their ass. I do think that if they want to. I know I can outrun them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here type of thing.
Let's pause it one more thing. By the way, Here, pause it one more time because I do just want to make this point. There is, and I find this to be fascinating, particularly after the years of pushing the gender stuff. But there's a realization amongst Democrats that they are too beta, and that they need. I mean, literally, I think I want to say, who was it? It was Van Jones, I believe. I heard on CNN the other day. Explicitly say we need alphas on our side. Like there's just even the Democrats eventually recognized that, oh yeah, Donald Trump is out alphaing us. That's a big component to what's going on here, which I don't know how that wasn't obvious to everybody. It literally was like I had a huge chunk on it in my my first comedy hour special, Libertas, about how Donald Trump just out alphaed everybody. Like that was so obvious right away. But anyway, they've finally realized this. It's very strange coming from, you know, like after they've pushed all the stuff they've pushed over the last 10, 15 years. But just a little piece of advice, maybe. You don't project like alpha male energy or like dominant male energy by saying, I am now going to project dominant male energy. Like, you have to just do it. You can't sit there and say it's too like, I think I could kick their ass. Like now this just comes off as like you're a try hard or something like that. It's like, no, that's not actually
I think
it.
you could win a dance off.
Yeah, quite possibly.
And honestly, I'm don't feel that comfortable with this toxic masculinity being exuded by him. It really, I mean, the fact that he'll threaten physical violence to try and solve political problems. I mean, what happens giving to tampons to boys? I thought that's what we were about.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just going to be very difficult for Democrats to transition, no pun intended, from all of the stuff they've been talking about to this now. Like we're going to be alpha men or something. I don't know. I just find this very, but it is interesting to me that they've at least recognized that. They realize like, oh, there's a problem here that we don't. It's not, and a part of it is just looking at the numbers. I mean, they are just hemorrhaging men, you know, and it's a lot more than the fact that it was Kamala Harris, that it was a woman running for president this year. It was true, according to the polls, under Joe Biden as well. And I think it would have been true if Joe Biden had run or just about any Democrat had run. It's like men across all age groups, across all ethnicities and races, and you know, like men have just walked away from Democrats. And it's for such obvious reasons. I mean, it's not an environment where any man is going to feel comfortable, or at least any like traditionally masculine man is just not going to feel comfortable there. It's everything is about feelings and, you know, about kind of, I don't know, like safety over adventurism. Like everything is there's just something like, even in the policies that I just like adamantly disagree with Donald Trump about, there's always something masculine to them. There's always something, you know, we're going to take Greenland or whatever, you know, it's like there's something there. And they've openly been talking about toxic masculinity for years and lecturing young boys. And, you know, it's been a disaster for them. So they recognize that to some degree, like we got to win these men back over. But then just sitting here again, I know I've used this example before, but it's just like when I hear Tim Walz talking about how he could kick anyone's ass, it just, to me, it's like that scene in The 40-Year-Old Virgin when he's describing what a boob feels like. Like, it's just like, I know you're saying the thing that you think is the thing to say now, but you clearly have no experience in this department at all. All right, let's keep playing.
Actually, I think it's one of the reasons we're losing so many men. And again, it's multi-ethnic. It's not just white men. We're losing them. We're losing them to these guys online. We're losing them people that I'm bringing on this podcast as well. That's why I brought.
These are bad guys, though. These
I
are
brought Charlie
bad
Cook,
guys.
but they exist, and we could deny they exist. They exist. Not only they exist, they persist, and they're actually influencing young kids every single day.
How do we push some of those guys back under a rock?
I think we have to first understand what their motivations are. I think we have to understand what they're actually doing. And
you don't think
that's
it's racism and misogyny?
I think there's a lot of that, but I don't think it's exclusively that. When you talk to a guy like Steve Bannon,
right here.
Talks about work.
This is, I mean, this is the part that was like actually most interesting to me. Is that because it just shows you it's such a it's the mentality of the old order, you know, and this is what Tim Walz's idea. How do we push them back under a rock? How do we take them out? And this is the mentality that the Democrats have, you know, and this is the mentality that the government has had for a very long time. It's like, that's it. Okay, they're a problem. So how do we eliminate them? What's the plan here? Censorship? You know what I mean? Like, what do we do? That's the goal. They're bad people. How do we get rid of them? And it's like what Gavin Newsom is a few steps ahead of Walz on this is that he's like, at least he's recognizing like, oh yeah, no, the answer is we can't. The answer is we can't push them back under a rock. We do not have that ability to do that. It's just it's not even an ideological question. It's a reality-based question. And just, can you do that or can you not? It'd be like, you know, yeah, whatever. It's just there's just, you're not in a position to do that. And then, you know, Gavin Newsom is kind of suggesting like, well, you have to kind of, it's like coming to the most obvious conclusion so many years too late. But he's like, I think maybe you'd have to address their arguments. I think maybe you'd have to deal with their grievances and maybe have a response to some of the points that they make. And Tim Walz is like, but they're racists and sexists. Like, it's like, wait, they're racist and sexist. They go under the rock. So, I mean, that did work for a remarkably long period of time. I don't think it's working anymore. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Entera Skincare. In the quest for youthful, radiant skin, Entera Skincare unveils the secret ingredient, peptides. Their scientifically formulated products are infused with powerful peptides, which are the building blocks of skin's natural resilience. Peptides dive deep into your skin, stimulating collagen production, reducing wrinkles, and restoring firmness. Whether you're combating the early signs of aging or nurturing mature skin, Entera's peptide-rich formulas cater to all skin types. Experience the transformative power of peptides. With Entera, you're not just nourishing your skin, you're unlocking its youthful potential. Join the peptide revolution. Embrace the future of skincare with Entera Skincare. Check them out at enteraskincare.com/problem and use the promo code problem for 10% off your next order. That's enteraskincare.com/problem, promo code problem for 10% off. All right, let's get back into the show. What do you think, Rob?
I agree with everything you just said. That was the most interesting part of it because Tim Walz is literally saying, hey, what happens to the old playbook where we call these people mean people and then we censor them and then we don't contend with any of their ideas? And Gavin Newsom's actually contending with reality, which the Democrats are particularly not good at, which is why they'll tell you that we're winning the Ukraine war, which will why they will tell you that it's better for your health to not go to work, not have your kids in school, and not to see your loved ones and to wear masks. Because Democrats, they like to take a narrative, pick the narrative, and then shame you if you don't agree with it. And they did that for how many years? That was the last 10 years? Was shaming everyone that didn't agree with their opinion and then censoring them and trying to pretend like you were an evil person if you didn't go with the Democratic narrative. And so that's all Tim Walz knows. And he's sitting here and he's going, Newsom, you're not playing by the book. You're actually giving these people their day to share their opinion. You're legitimizing them. We got to do everything that we can to push them back under the rock. But Newsom, like I said, he's actually better at sales, and he knows you got to answer the phone. You can't fear it. And so we have to actually have these conversations. And if you've ever seen two people auditioning to try and be a part of the next election, I mean, Newsom is clearly more favorable than Tim Walz, who's trying to pull the Kamala Harris playbook of, well, I'll just preach that the other people are evil. Yeah, that didn't work. And you're not going to sell that. It doesn't work. Newsom's at least...
Yes, I agree with you. You know, there's no like conceivable path from where Tim Walz is to being the Democratic nominee next time, because you can't be the VP candidate on such a spectacular failure of a ticket and then get from there. But even if you could,
we haven't seen his interpretive dances yet. And
well, that is a good point. That is a good point.
It's a little bit like in It's Always Sunny when what's his name finally comes out of the closet and Frank goes, "I get it." So you know, maybe he just hasn't had a moment to express himself.
That is,
and the way he really knows how, in a way that would be genuine, and the rest of America would go, "Now I get that guy."
Well, you do. Yeah, well, listen. Interpretive dance wild card aside, you do see just the difference in skill and intelligence, and this is what I was kind of saying about Gavin Newsom. I mean, it's just like, yes, there's just levels above. But listen, the point you made, and I think we had an episode recently that was titled like "The Left versus Reality" or something like that, and there is no question about it. And I think there's something at the like. It's at the very heart of kind of the left-right divide. Right-wing people, it's kind of built into their worldview that we have constraints due to reality, you know, and that's something that you have to contend with. You can't just wish that away. Whereas the left-wing worldview is always kind of built more on a utopian vision. It's egalitarianism in itself is a kind of utopian vision. And like most utopian visions, when put into practice, they're actually terrifying nightmares. But there is something where it's right. Like, you know, I think the example we were talking about in that episode was like IQ science. And it's amazing to see leftist reactions to IQ science being presented to them. And like, look, it's uncomfortable, but you know, and it's not like the IQ, the best science on IQ tells us things that we would all probably wish weren't the case. You know, like it would be nicer if the average IQ was the same in every racial group, but it's not. And then it almost like I don't remember getting into this. It's never been like an area that I specialize in or like talk about a lot, but I remember getting into arguments about this with like woke libertarians, you know, like a few years ago. And there's just something interesting about like, and perhaps it's like a personality trait type of thing, but there's something about like, I find it to be like a maturity test in a lot of ways. But when you come across information that's like, shit, I really wish it wasn't that way, but this is what reality is. It's like a question of how do you deal with that? Do you just stick your head in the sand and pretend that's not real? You just like, nope, sorry, that challenges my worldview, and so I'm going to ignore that? Or do you go like, okay, shit, well, we got to grapple with that now. I have to incorporate that into my, you know, view of things. And look, I mean, you know, you gave a good example of we're winning the war in Ukraine. But even like, I gotta say, all the transgender stuff, I mean, it's like the most obvious test of all of this. And again, that doesn't mean you have to say, like, there is a way in which you could be an advocate for transgender people and still come to terms with reality. Right? Like you could sit here and be like, hey man, like adults should be allowed to live their life however they want to. Even if you're making the argument for children, you know, you could make that argument. I don't agree with it, but you could make the argument that it's like, people are better if they're allowed to live their lives in these ways. But to leftists, so often, it's not just that. They also then have to just deny the reality of it. Trans women are women. If you're like, oh, that's a biological male, you're a bigot, you're a horrible person. It's like, wait, what? Like, it's just, there's such a mentality. Forget even how you feel about any trans issue. Forget how you feel about that. I'm just saying there's a difference between people who just recognize what's in our control and what's out of our control. What is real? Like, what is real is that like you were biologically born a sex, and you don't get to change that any more than you get to change your species. You can pretend like you can do it, but like you're not actually doing it. It's just so obvious. And anyway, there is just something about that like the inability to deal with reality. And what you're seeing here, as you put it, is that at least Gavin Newsom is attempting. He's at least attempting to, like, let me try. Okay, let's just play the last couple moments of this.
Working folks, and he talks about how we hollowed out the industrial core of this country.
But
I understand that. But so we can dismiss the notion of election denialism. We could completely dismiss what he did on January 6th, but I don't think you can dismiss what he's saying. Reminds me a lot of what Bernie Sanders was saying. Reminds me a lot of what Democrats said 20, 30 years ago.
All right. So anyway, they're at the final. I mean, you really do just see how helpless Tim Walz is in this conversation. That he goes, Steve Bannon's coming here, and however you feel about him, he's got like a pitch to the working class, and he's got an argument for how the government has betrayed them and what the plan is to get things back for them. And he goes, but he denied the election. Like he can't get out of this like old box. Like you're trapped in this old world, and that is over, dude. Like that's just not how it works anymore. It's to me very interesting to watch who can adapt and who can't. That really is what it all comes down to. Any final thoughts on Gavin Newsom's podcast there, or any of the stuff, Rob?
I like that he's doing it because as all of the Joy Reids and everyone else gets cleaned out of cable media, at least we got a new person to get some clips from and criticize. So lucky for us, there'll be more people spewing absolute nonsense on new platforms, and we'll be able to tackle it.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I try. It's a weird feeling almost in a way. I don't think we've ever really been quite here before, but I am more hesitant than ever. Like when I'm finding clips, I'll see all the time just someone on CNN or someone on MSNBC saying the most retarded thing ever. And it's gotten to a point where it starts to feel beneath this show to be debunking that. Because it's like, what am I even doing? No one's watching it.
Maybe you got to get on Newsom's show and take his soul. Just take him out of the race. Maybe that can be the next trophy for the Dave Smith soul collection.
Dude, I'd do that anytime. I'm not sure he would, but I would do Gavin Newsom's podcast in a heartbeat. I would love it.
And he did have Charlie Kirk on. That's true. I do think that Charlie Kirk, and I'm not saying anything bad about Charlie, because I like him. And he's been cool to me, and I've done his show a couple times, and I enjoy doing it. I think he's a smart guy. Like I respect him. I do think that, there was I really appreciated this. I took it as a compliment, although it wasn't exactly a compliment. But I also did think there was something that was kind of an accurate assessment. So Patrick Bet-David, I think I'm almost 99% sure it was Patrick Bet-David was on Tucker Carlson's podcast. And it was ahead of the Cuomo debate. Like the debate had been announced, but we hadn't done it yet. And I think that was the topic that came up, but I came up. And I think Pat asked Tucker something like, oh, how do you think that's going to go? Or how do you think? And Tucker said, he goes, the thing about Dave is that he's totally unencumbered. Like he doesn't have anything that he's not allowed to say. Like there's no, and I think what he was just getting at is that there's no, I'm kind of in a unique position where I make my money from the podcast and from touring on the road. There is no donor. There is no, we have sponsors on the show, but there's like zero pressure that comes from the sponsors we have. And this, as well as anyone, Rob, because for years we're working with some of these sponsors, but there's nobody, there's not, it is. And literally, as I'm talking to you and Natalie, or the people on my team here on the show, this, it's inconceivable that one of our sponsors would put pressure on us over the content of our show, and that would have any result other than, oh, okay, go fuck yourself. You're not a sponsor on my show anymore. There's no, like, this is the idea that
Crowd Health is going to jump on me and be like, hey, Dave, this thing you said. First off, most people like Crowd Health. Most of them are on board. And this is a great company, by the way, but they're on board because they like what we do. Like, there's, you know what I mean? Like, it's so, and I think when Tucker said that, there was something about that hit home with me. Like, I have no concern about like the billionaire that I have to meet with next month and whether we're going to get our check to keep going for the next year. And this is just something that happens. It's the nature of not government. It's the nature of just like the world when you get an entity that's as large as like Turning Point USA or something like that. And so in other words, I'm not going to the cocktail parties. I don't go to any cocktail parties. I don't even go to the Gas Digital parties. I would love probably to do those, but I just got little kids. I'm busy. But like, I don't, there's nothing that would be taken away from me if I crossed this line. It's like, whatever, I'm just in a unique position where I just get to tell the truth. And I've kind of built my career to be that way because that's what I like to do. And so there is just, it's a safer proposition for Gavin Newsom to have Charlie Kirk on than it would be to have me on. Like, there's just, it would be like Chris Cuomo, like it's, to me, there's, and even though I'd probably, like the war and peace is probably like my number one issue that I care about the most. Like lockdown, I'm more furious at lockdown governors than I am at anybody else. And there'd be, the truth is, me saying this out loud probably guarantees that I'll never be on the show, but it's a long shot anyway, so I don't care. But like, I'd go in with the mentality I went in with Cuomo. Like, I'm gonna fucking ruin you. Not just like, I guess I can't like ruin you exactly, but this will be an albatross around your neck for the rest of your public days. Like, this will be something that it's like, but remember when that guy took your fucking soul? Like that's what it would be. And I don't think Charlie Kirk went in with that attitude. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a different, I'm a different animal in that way. And that's not to say I'm better or smarter or anything like that. It's just, we're different people in different positions and we have different styles. So anyway, I don't think that's going to happen, but man, I would do that in a second. Man, would I love to do that. Okay. So the other thing, by the way, is speaking of, so what I will find for the shows now is like, okay, so like this, like, again, so Joy Reid is gone, but like whoever the next stupid lady at MSNBC is, I'm having a tougher and tougher time justifying like playing a clip of them because you're just like, no one watched this. No one takes this seriously. It's kind of low-hanging fruit. But when Gavin Newsom is now starting a podcast and looks like the 2028 frontrunner, that's worth, like taking on. Likewise, to set up this next clip, when the most powerful Democrat in the Senate is going on The View, I still think that's legitimate to a legitimate target because this is somebody with actual political power. And he is kind of the de facto leader or the co-leader. I guess it's him and Nancy Pelosi are still kind of the leaders of the Democratic Party, which is remarkable in a sense. It's really, and I know this is a point that you've made many times, Rob, but it's really something about DC where like in almost any other area of life, you simply cannot fail as catastrophically as Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi have failed and just continue on. There's no company where there wouldn't be a shakeup, no matter how high up it is. I mean, this could be the CEO or the CFO of a company. If they failed this spectacular, we're looking for a new CEO. That's it. In a marriage, if you fail this spectacularly, it ends in divorce. There's just nothing in life where there aren't some repercussions, except for in DC, where you can just fail and fail and fail and fail, and you could, and then still be outraged if anyone suggests you leave. And still be, what do you mean you're going to cut the Department of Education? What? Like, Department of Education? What? Like, we spend so much goddamn money on education, and our kids can't read. And they're like, still, you can't cut us. Anyway. All right, guys, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Monetary Metals, an amazing company that I've been telling you guys about for a while now. You really got to check them out. If you own gold, you've probably been pretty happy to see prices hitting an all-time high last year, but Your gold can do more than just sit there waiting for the price to go up. It can also generate passive income for you. With Monetary Metals, you can earn up to 5% interest on your gold and silver paid in more ounces of metal, and accredited investors can even achieve double-digit returns in their bond offerings. All interest payments are made in ounces of gold and silver stored in your account free of charge. So you just think about this. A lot of people own gold and silver for a variety of reasons. But oftentimes people own this. I think most of the time people own it and they're being charged storage fees for it. And they're not earning anything off it. And now with Monetary Metals, not only are you earning off of your precious metals, but you're earning precious metals off of your precious metals. It's just a brilliant idea, and I believe it's really the future of the precious metals space. So go check them out, monetary-metals.com. That's the website where you can click the link in the episode description, monetary-metals.com. All right, let's get back into the show. Here is Chuck Schumer on The View, giving his pitch to the American people.
I'm sort of the orchestra leader, and I have a lot of talent in that orchestra. So what I do is I show them off. We have some great spokespeople, people like Chris Murphy and Brian Schatz. Right. We have, Democrats are learning to do the digital social media much better than we did before. I put Cory Booker and Tina Smith in charge. And then we have Bernie going out to Republican areas and doing rallies and rallying. So we have a load of talent in our caucus. And I'll tell you one thing, we are totally united in one thing. Pause it already, because, and then just go back a little bit because I want to get that next statement in there. But dude, to just say I have a load of talent and then to rattle off the most pathetic list of names, I mean, it's just like, talk about not contending with reality. Oh yeah, we've so much talent. I mean, we could throw Cory Booker at him if we needed to. Cory Booker, dude. What did that guy get when he ran for president? Anything? Was he at 1% in the polls?
It's worse than that. I mean, I've said it that the Democrats, listen, we'll see. They might do all right depending on how bad Trump does. But at the moment, right, they have nobody on their bench. And the fact that they have Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders trying to be out there selling the Democratic message just speaks to currently how doomed they are. But when you start talking about their social media presence, and we played some of the horrific clips that they had over the last couple of weeks, Cory Booker had a particularly bad one where he wrote that script where everyone, here's the thing, like they're trying, for all the talk that they did of Donald Trump and the dignity of the office, now they're trying to be cool and like throw in curse words, but it just doesn't match their style and it doesn't fit for them. And also the internet has picked up on, oh, everyone's reading the exact same script. What is this? And so it was something, I think the line was like, that shit just won't stand, or something just, it was not good. And Cory Booker had to come forward afterwards and go, yeah, I wrote that. And so the fact that that's the name being thrown out there right now of, oh, I got this guy and he's running our social media strategy. Talk about not adapting, of that you can't find a single marketing company with the millions. I mean, the fact that I guess it speaks to the $1.2 billion that Kamala Harris spent not being reelected, and how much the marketing companies failed her in trying to put together a strategy and what she paid to digital marketing companies. But to sit here right now, right after Cory Booker had a big swing and a miss, and go, don't worry, our bench is doing okay. We're getting the social media thing that the kids like, and I've got Cory Booker working on it. Just sounds like it's like the guy trying to flip a burger that's got a piece of cheese on it and the oven's not on. You do not know how to do this.
Yeah, there's look, this is an element to it that it's like it's not as simple as like we've got to be on social media, because it's like you could go viral on social media in a bad way. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between going viral and something that's helpful and something that's disastrous, like Kamala Harris had a ton of things that went viral during the election when she said on The View that she couldn't think of anything that she would have done differently than Joe Biden. That went viral. It also destroyed any chance she had, if she had any chance of winning the election. And it gives off, it just gives off such imposter energy. Like it's like, oh, say what you will about Donald Trump. but he was always being Donald Trump. It wasn't like there was some other Donald Trump and he was trying to be just like that. And, it's like they're going and doing things that are like, they'll be doing like an internet viral trend, but it was like a trend 3 years ago. And then they come out and do it and you're like, no, that's all wrong. Like, that's not how this works. So yes, anyway, it is just delusional. I mean, maybe this is just what he has to say and he knows the truth, but it is delusional to be like, we have this strong bench and they're really connecting with social media and all this shit. The truth is that even amongst things like, okay, there's that Call Her Daddy podcast. And I don't know exactly, I saw some of the episode of Kamala Harris. I've never watched that podcast before. I don't really think it's for me. But from what I understand, it does get a lot of views. And so it's like, it's a big show, but even amongst people who watch that show, it's not necessarily moving the needle that Kamala Harris went on it. And something like, say, for example, like Taylor Swift is undeniably huge. She's the biggest musician, I think, ever. I think her last tour was like the biggest tour in history. But her telling people to vote for Kamala Harris didn't move the needle at all. And so it's like the truth is that the Democrats are just, you kind of can't overstate it. They're getting annihilated in the podcast social media game, just destroyed. So for him to sit here and say, we've gotten better and we got Cory Books out there doing it, it's like, yeah, come on, dude, this is total bullshit. All right, let's play some more.
Rallying. So we have a load of talent in our caucus, and I'll tell you one thing: we are totally united in one thing. Many things, but one thing above all, we are united in going after Trump and showing the American people that he is making the middle class pay for the tax cuts on the rich.
Right.
Today we're doing it on Medicaid.
Again.
We're good.
Yeah, let's pause it.
The fact that you would take your entire party to just unite to undermine another person, that's not a very good message. How about united on trying to make a better life for the working class? And so it's just the wrong message. You're not supposed to be in front of us talking about the team sport aspect, and we're just here to undermine that guy.
It's so stupid. And yes, okay, he did kind of tie it to like going after Trump, and then it almost seemed like he felt that he needed to say, and how he's making the middle class pay for the tax cuts or something like that. But like, it is so stupid. I mean, it's so opposite. Like the move is that we're all united to make life better for the working class, to make life better for middle class Americans, that's what you're united in, or even united in something like to get free healthcare or to get, whatever, something that makes people's lives materially better. We're all united, like, in opposing Donald Trump. First of all, yeah, we know that's not new. That's the thing that got you here. Like, what is that? Obviously, you all oppose Donald Trump, but like for your whole thing, it does just come off, which is the truth, which is like undeniably the truth. And this, again, as we mentioned, was one of the most powerful, and it was a rhetorical trick, but it was one of the most powerful moments of Donald Trump's State of the Union speech, which was very well received by the American people. But when his most part, where he goes, I could do anything, and these guys are going to vote, and when you take on, first of all, he's pointing that out. It's also undeniably true that people just hate Donald Trump so much that they're going to oppose him. The people who hate him are going to oppose him no matter what he does. But for Chuck Schumer to actually say that, it's like, oh, so now you're putting yourself in a position where we're playing politics and, like you said, team sports. And so what? We're just going to oppose Donald Trump even if he does something that's good for the country? Now, in terms of the substance, I mean, I guess he's about to get into it, so we can, I'll save that and then we can respond to this. But in terms of the argument here he's laying out is that the middle class are going to have to pay for the tax cuts for the rich. Again, just the same old message. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, could you, like, tell me any scenario in life where you have a catastrophic failure whether that would be professionally or personally, romantically, whatever. You have a catastrophic failure. And then as a result of that, you go, I think what we should do is continue doing all of the same things. Like, when does that ever make sense? And this message of like, you know, you want tax breaks for the rich and the middle class will have to pay that. The rich should pay their fair share type shit is like, this is the same exact thing you guys always say. This is the new thing. We're united in our opposition to Donald Trump and the rich should pay their fair share. Okay. All right. Way to deal with the situation you're facing. All right, let's just play the next little bit and we'll break that down and then we'll wrap.
Going to do it very soon on the tariffs. He wants to put these tariffs in. It's going to raise you folks, the average family, $22,000 a year for these tariffs. Why is he doing that? Something so stupid.
Why?
He wants to use that money for tax cuts for the billionaires. The Republican Party is a different kettle of fish than it used to be. And that's why we're fighting them so hard. They are controlled by a small group of wealthy, greedy people. And you know what their attitude is? I made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? I don't want to pay taxes. Or I built my company with my bare hands. How dare your government tell me how I should treat my customers, my the land and water that I own, or my employees? They hate government. Government's a barrier to people, a barrier to stop them from doing things. They want to destroy it. We are not letting them do it, and we're united.
Okay. Man, you know, sometimes I just wish I would just love to live in a world where the Democrats' caricature of the Republicans was accurate. Man, I really wish they hated government and were trying to destroy it, but unfortunately, that's not the reality. I do, you know, obviously there's a lot that's just factually wrong. It's just kind of like garbage economics and, you know, just bad, an inaccurate understanding of the way things work. But I just can't tell you, like, I just find it so profoundly evil to have somebody like Chuck Schumer, who is worth, like, I mean, I don't know his exact net worth off the top of my head, but he's worth an ungodly amount of money. He's made his money by being a quote unquote public servant. And then he's sitting here and mocking people who built a successful business and how they feel like they did it themselves. And, you know, of course, it's also like a straw man argument. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anyone who's built a business literally say, I did this all on my own with my bare hands. I had no help at all. Obviously, all of us have help in one way or another, down to very, very basic things that we all take for granted. Like, we're speaking a language right now that we didn't invent. You know what I mean? Like, there's always like we always stand on the shoulders of like all of human history. But the idea that somebody in the parasitical government class is lecturing people who did build and create things about how they feel like it's rightfully theirs. First of all, it's evil. You're supposed to be a servant of the people who you're mocking right now. And then on top of that, it's also like, in what way does this message resonate with anyone? You know, you sit there at the end and say, hey, we're united now. Yeah, you're united with a 24% approval rating. Who's united? You're the, like, you guys might be united. The American people are the most united I've ever seen them in rejecting you. But yeah, you know, most people actually do think of their money as theirs. Most people, when they work for money and they get a paycheck, they think of that as their paycheck, not that it belongs to you. I don't know. Any other thoughts on this one, Rob?
Even this, it seems like he was being cut by a commercial break, and so he didn't get to quite explain what he was trying to get out, and so he basically just pitched it backwards.
Yeah. Well, it's also the other thing too is that this idea that, you know, and this has just been true for a long period of time. It's when he, you know, this talk about tax cuts for billionaires it's all just made up nonsense. It's all fucking nonsense. Billionaires don't pay income tax in a meaningful way. It's like, and I mean, I'm not saying like they don't pay, literally don't pay any taxes, but like billionaires, their salary is the least of anything. I mean, I think there were many years where Warren Buffett didn't have a salary. I think a lot of the richest people on earth don't even pay themselves salaries. These people have, you know, you don't, when anyone talks about Elon Musk, nobody goes, did you see what he made last year? Like in terms of a salary, they talk about his net worth, what his companies are worth. Billionaires are paying capital gains taxes. Okay. And so the idea that this has anything to do with an income tax is just all ridiculous. The people, billionaires have, first of all, they have the system rigged in their favor. They have armies of accountants and tax lawyers to figure out every single loophole and then manage their wealth around that. Who ends up getting banged out by taxes, by income taxes, is the upper middle class. That's who ends up paying. You know what I mean? It's not, it's like the doctor. It's not the billionaire. It's the doctor who makes like 600 grand a year and then has to pay like half of that to the government. Like that's who you end up like going after with these taxes. But this idea that the Democrats like to like, you know, because if you say it like that, like the way it really is, the way it works, then you're more likely to be like, oh, my doctor like got my kid better when he was sick. I don't really hate him. You know what I mean? It's like, but when you just say the billionaire, it's like, oh, you're picturing Scrooge McDuck and he's sitting on a pile of money. Yeah, share a little bit of that money. Come on, what, you know? But it's like, no, the people who actually get like really bear the burden of these of raising income taxes is people who are, you know, the ones who are essentially what's left of the middle class. Because you kind of have to be making six figures to be in the middle class these days. So anyway, this is just all nonsense. And yeah, Democrats are in trouble, man. This is they got to get this old fart out of the way because he is not going to be. I mean, listen, I don't like any of them, but Gavin Newsom seems right now to be like the only one that is even in the conversation, or at least dealing with the reality in front of them. All right, we got to wrap on that. Thank you guys very much for listening. Catch you next time. Peace.